Well, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Blackaby, and I'm joined once again, as I always am, by the one, the only Naya Phillips. How are you doing today, Naya?
I'm I'm doing well. I'm a little drowsy. It's still weird hearing Phillips as my last name. But I am a little drowsy. We watched the Argentina game last night and it ended, I think, at 11-ish. So, which isn't too terribly late, but we got up pretty early as well. How are you
Yeah, see,
doing today?
I'm doing good. I had a good jog this morning in the rain, so I'm
Oh,
feeling
lovely.
not only refreshed but slightly prideful that I got myself out there and ran in the rain. Me and my mother went running together, so I'm feeling pretty good. It's funny to say 11. Like my regular bedtime is like 12, so I am definitely
Uh-uh.
I stay up late. But yeah, so and we will touch a little bit on the World Cup and follow up on some of that. But I'm excited because this has been we weren't here last week. I was traveling, promoting a new book among other things this last week down in Orlando, Florida. So we have 2 whole weeks worth of pop culture to collide with. So I'm gearing up. I think you'll find your second wind once we start colliding, and we will be able to dig into this. And there's some interesting stuff going on too, because we're going to talk about one of the big questions that we all have, and that is, are we in fact alone in the universe? I mean, someone's got to build those pyramids, so you can see where I
Oh,
lie
yeah.
on
Mm.
on some of that. But obviously, based on a lot of things, aliens seem to be like in vogue right now, and they're everywhere. And the only Steven Spielberg just released an alien movie, which very much deals with the question from the perspective of faith. What does it do to Christians and the church and our beliefs and our place in the world if we were to discover that there are aliens? So I thought we'd dialogue a little bit with Spielberg with his movie and just the question at large about, does would it really shake our faith if there were in fact aliens out there? So we'll get into some of that. But before we get into the big question, I did want to just do a bit of a roundup of just things going on in pop culture. I know there's been a couple things that I've noticed that I think are relevant to Christians and just things that I'm interested in. But before I share those, what about you? I think you've already hinted towards some of the stuff that you've been plugged into. But what have you seen going on in the world of pop culture?
Yes. Well, as you said, I definitely hinted at it. The World Cup has been going and it is wild. Like, I know that you're not paying attention, but a lot of the games already, it's been what? Like a week or something? A little over a week, maybe 2 weeks since it started, and already there have been like crazy just results to games. Like Spain tied with Cape Verde, which was super, super cool. France and Senegal, it was just an impressive game. Like France did not do well. They still won, but it was crazy. And then Messi got his first World Cup hat trick, which was awesome. But the thing I want to talk about is that the World Cup fans who are simply loving America. It's, I think, a lot of their first time here. And there's this guy named Freddie on some social media, I think it's X, who keeps like rating the places that he goes to. Like he was in Atlanta and just loved it. He loved how green it was. He was having a great time. He went to Waffle House at 1 a.m. He kept going to
Oh yeah,
Walmart. He loved Taco Bell, and he loved the American breakfast, which is just sugary cereal and orange juice. And I think that is hilarious. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is that the US, who had just an amazing showing last Friday, beating Paraguay 4-1, it was amazing. The last goal, just insane. If they keep playing like that and they make it out of group stages, they make it out of the round of 32 and into the round of 16, that's on July 4th, which means that there is a possibility that the US plays England on the 250th anniversary of them breaking up with England. Which, how insane would like, we have to win if that happens. There's no other
yeah,
option. We have to
yeah.
win.
I mean, that would, yeah, get a victory for old George Washington in his honor. Kick
Yes.
the Brits out. I know, like you said, I haven't been following. I do think it's funny. I've seen some of the people with like the food, and I mean,
Mhm.
nothing's more American than going to Waffle House at 1 in the morning like that.
Nothing's more Southern American than going to
Yeah,
Waffle House.
yeah, I guess at that point, they should just, like, give you a passport and, like, make you a citizen if you're experiencing that. I always
Yeah.
wanna get into I just don't follow soccer, like, I follow most sports, I get into I don't know, I've never been a huge soccer guy, and I just don't follow it enough to care, but I may as things get, a bit more down to the wire. I do love, like, international, like, I get obsessed with the Olympics, and so
Yeah.
I feel like I would be into I just need you to, like, tell me what
This is
teams I
my
should care about, and,
Olympics.
okay, since I
There's
don't
a
know any of these
yeah,
teams.
yeah.
So maybe I'll get into it as things get because it goes on forever. It's like what is it, like a month long of just
It
big
ends
soccer.
July 19th is the final.
Okay, yeah, so that's a lot of
So, yeah,
so that's yeah over a month. Oh my word.
a
So
lot of
maybe
soccer.
by the end we'll see. I'll update on the podcast if I get sucked into the World Cup fever. A couple things I noticed that aren't big and exciting and international, but I think are noteworthy. One is I did want to follow up on the Masters of the Universe movie. So this is a movie that you did not see. Count your blessings one by one. So I saw this movie with my kid. Just not a good movie, really from any perspective. It's hard to find anything of value to praise this movie. So did not like it, and it turns out it seems that really no one liked it, or at least no one went to see it. So this movie is not doing well, historically not doing well. So I was pulling some of the data from that. Said it had like a 70% drop off from this first week,
Oof.
which you could see
Yikes.
like 10 miles away that all the nostalgic middle-aged guys that grew up with the toys went first weekend, then no one
Mhm,
else. It
mhm.
didn't appeal to anyone else. It's made like $86 million worldwide, with a budget of like 200 million, and then a whole lot of marketing. So it's going to lose like hundreds of millions of dollars. And I do think why again I always cheer for movies. So it's not even movies I don't like. So I don't want to just like take glee in the failure of a movie, but I think it's relevant to me because to me, and I think I said it in my review a bit. It's just I don't know. It's like symbolic of so many things that are wrong with movies. And part of that was I saw some statistics said only 4 to 5% of viewers were under the age of 12, um, which is just crazy to me. And my one of my sons was 11, so he was one of those 4 to 5%.
Mhm,
But I mean, like this is a show. Like the reason this movie exists is because a whole lot of under 12-year-old kids grew up with the toys and watched the
mhm,
cartoon on Saturday morning. Like it was made for kids.
mhm.
And the movie, I don't know, the movie just did not like tons of sexual innuendos,
Yikes.
total nostalgia, like a whole lot of like kind of preaching and stuff that like goes over the head of kids about like
Mhm.
masculinity and like very much trying to sort of be Barbie, just with without the success that Barbie had. And I don't know, I just to me, like I think there's been a lot of movies, even like the recent Star Wars movie, like a lot of these movies that just are not resonating with people, and it just to me, I don't know, we could do a whole deep dive. Maybe we will at some point do a deep dive episode on just like I feel like so many of these movies are aiming at like the same audiences that made them beloved in the first place,
Mhm.
like as adults, and kind of the nostalgia and just more of it as opposed to trying to like recreate that same sense of like wonder and like like Star Wars and stuff. It's like we're making movies for like 60-year-olds that just want nostalgic Star Wars as opposed to the kind of Star Wars movies that like made kids fall in love with Star Wars. And
Yeah,
I don't know, so I just think it's one of those you could tell Masters of the Universe very much wanted to be Barbie, had the same kind
yeah.
of messages, same sort of tone, same sort of wrestling with the problematic toys of our youth, and it just apparently it did not land the way that Barbie did. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and I can link because I wrote an article on this, is and it's become like a whole. Even since I wrote the article, it's become an even bigger story with like the vice president Vance weighing in on it, and
Really?
a bunch of outlets, like, but,
Oh, I
the
missed
San
that.
Francisco, yeah, like, it's become I maybe should have maybe I need to update my article, but the San Francisco Giants, which is my team, I've grown up cheering for the Giants my whole life. I lived in San Francisco during their like dynasty years where they won several of their championships, and so love the Giants. But they kind of caused some controversy on their. They had a Pride night, and especially I think I'm pretty sure like San Francisco, like they were the first one to even ever host a Pride, like baseball.
Really?
Like
That makes
San
sense.
Francisco is it gets the hub. Like you would expect that Pride nights sell well in San Francisco, but some of their pitchers kind of opted out, which has become a bigger story. Like more and more in other leagues and stuff, players just being like, you know what, like you can celebrate it, but like I'm not going to wear rainbow clothing or whatever. Like I don't want to participate. And so they had at least three. Um, Players in the game. Like one of them, they had like the rainbow hat. One of them just wore his other hat, like his regular one, kind of protesting in that way. And several of them, like the starting pitcher and then one of the relievers, like actually wrote like they wore the rainbow hat, but they wrote like Genesis verses. Referring to like the flood or and like the rainbow as God's covenant and kind of like kind of shifting the meaning of the rainbow on the hat to be more about God's covenant and then like after I'll link the articles. I have some of the quotes and stuff, and we don't need to get all into it here.
Mhm.
Um, but I just think it's interesting. One, just because the Giants are my team, and they've been. If you follow the Giants, they've been very open. Like I used to know the chaplain for the Giants. Like I kind of heard a lot of like from back, a decade ago, like that they've always had a pretty strong Christian contingent on the team, and even like in recent years, a lot of their players after games wear like shirts that say Jesus won. Like when they've won a game, their pitcher will wear a
Yeah.
shirt that says Jesus won. It's like they've been very open about their faith. This isn't like out of nowhere. But it's just interesting to me, like I don't know. I think these sort of pride nights and things, it just seems that there's been more and more pushback to having these sort of themed nights, whether it's Pride Night or like any, any of these sort of other than maybe like cancer awareness or things that we can sort of all
Mhm.
agree on. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I wonder if it's going to sort of if some of the as more and more players sort of stand up against like being forced to participate and to wear the stuff, and it seemed like the league kind of sent a warning to them, and it may get messy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought it's interesting to see that there is very much we talk about like the collision of culture, and that is very much a collision. And I will say too, and I need to think more through this, and this isn't the main topic, so we can kind of move on. But I do. I don't know. My initial inclination is I'm more okay with like I'm perfectly okay with them standing up for what they believe, and I don't believe leagues and teams should force them to sort of promote things that they don't want to. I prefer just the, like, I'm gonna wear my normal hat. The adding,
Yeah.
like, the verse and stuff to me, like, I don't know, to me, maybe that gets a little too cute, and to me, it
Mhm.
sort of frames it, it 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 gives it a bit more of a flavor of, like an us versus them, like,
Yeah.
we're not just sort of opting out, like, "You know what? We're not gonna participate." It's very much like, we're actually gonna sort of
And
push.
yeah, and the MLB, like I was just looking at this, so we can verify it again if we need to. But the MLB issued a warning to them for doing that, and of course, people got mad about them issuing a warning. But the warning was not disciplinary, and the MLB is just saying like you're not allowed to put writing of any kind on your uniform, basically. So I mean, it just seems like if you're wanting to like you're saying, it feels very us versus them, and I feel like if you're really wanting to have this platform and make people, like, listen to you more, just wear your normal hat and then talk about it in the interview in the end. So that way, like, you're not breaking the rules that are put in place, but you're also, like, staying true to your own beliefs without being more us versus them. You
Yeah,
know
and
what
I
I'm
think, like
saying?
and to me, like, the warning from the MLB is very much a save face. It's like a, "We're gonna warn you so that people know we're taking this seriously, but we're not gonna punish you because we don't want the other side to get mad." Like, it's sort of like
Yeah.
a nothing, like a, "We're aware and we don't like it, but we're not gonna do anything." But yeah,
Uh-huh.
I agree with you though. Like, I think I think the same sort of answers and, like, being able to speak on your faith would have been possible,
Mhm.
had you just worn the regular hat. Like, I I think it becomes a bit more of like a we're and no, I've never been in that position, and like I said, I do support them standing up for it. I don't think we should have pride nights at I've attended just because of the way that teams and schedules went. Like I've been to some of these pride nights just because that's when the team I wanted to see was playing, and I don't know. I just don't think that there's a place for that necessarily, or that it's needed. And I think more and more players will stand up. I just think we need to sort of figure out what is the best way to sort of stand in our convictions while
Mhm.
also not kind of giving the wrong
Which yeah,
impression.
which
So
might
who
be
knows?
different for everyone, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah.
so we'll see. I just think it very much is sort of one of those, like, very in real time, you see sort of Christians navigating how do we, I
Mhm.
in a public, on a public platform, how do we sort of navigate some of these, issues? But I did wanna, and we'll drop the link if you wanna see some more, like, the actual, like, interviews and stuff. And the Giants are having a horrible season, so at least they're getting some attention, 'cause they have definitely not been winning baseball
Go
games,
Braves.
this year. But to get to sort of the main event here, because we did want to make sure we have time to talk about aliens, because I love aliens. I don't know where you stand. We haven't actually talked about this going in. And we've both seen the Disclosure Day. You know my thoughts because you helped edit my review for it. I don't know your thoughts yet, so we'll see if you're more positive. I will say sort of I don't know if it was intentional or not. I think Spielberg's always been into aliens, but it does seem like aliens are like, I don't know. It's like they got a new PR person or something, because like there's been way more focus. Like people are always fascinated, but there's been a lot of discussion. Like, and some of it, like even the U.S. government has been releasing like their UFO files. Like the Pentagon, I think they've done like 3 batches of these. Where they've released different documents that were classified. And I haven't done a deep dive. I don't know if you've done a deep dive in any of these files. Like it seems like it's sort of a lot of, there was a smudge on the camera, and it's, what could that be? And like nothing, like it's not the juicy stuff that I think people were hoping to, like these government cover-ups. And um but it's definitely being like in like the public consciousness of just aliens. And I do think and then we can get into the kind of the movie, but I think the to me I've always felt like a lot of this, the interest in aliens kind of comes down to like just our innate sense of worship. Like I think there is this sense that we're always looking for something sort of beyond us, and even sort of up in the heavens, like up there beyond us, these which I think is why a lot of times the aliens in our show, the way we think of aliens is always like a higher intelligence, and they have these like
Mhm.
supernatural, they're sort of like these godlike things. And I think a lot of that comes down to just like we are created to worship, and we're directing that to something, and if it's not God, then perhaps it's sort of to these little green men up in their flying saucers, and yeah, coming down from Mars. But Disclosure Day, so this movie kind of did some of our work for us of taking the alien conversation and like directly applying it to faith, kind of wrestling with what does this mean for
Mhm.
Christians if we were to suddenly discover that aliens were real and government's been sort of hiding this truth for us. I thought let you share most of your thoughts, because people can see my thoughts in my review. I can maybe share a bit too. But what was your just like, we can get into the thematic stuff in a second, but like just as a movie, did you I don't know, do you like the movie? Were you
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was classic. I just enjoyed it for like the different shots that they had, because it was classic Spielberg, the way that he was blocking everything, where everyone stood where the camera was. So it's always fun to see that. I liked it a lot. Dusty went with me. I liked it a lot more than he did, just because I like going to the movies. But I loved that Josh O'Connor and Emily Blunt's characters like did not have a romantic relationship. I'm very appreciative of that, like that they can just have a really strong connection and make it platonic. Like that's really cool, and I think that we need more of that in film. And I really liked that Josh's character, Josh, like I know him, that
Joshy?
Josh's character was imbued to understand aliens and Emily's was to understand people, which I thought was really cool and kind of reflective of God's design in men and women. And then I was gonna kind of get into the themes, but I can hold off on that. But I did feel like the religious aspect of it just kind of felt random. I enjoyed it, some of it, but it's also like some of the conversations that they were having. I was like, why is this in the movie? This doesn't really need to be here. Just feels it felt very self-indulgent for Spielberg and the screenwriter, and not what was best for the story or best for the film.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that. Yeah, because that was my like. I feel like the movie just wasn't as clever as it thought it was.
mhm.
Like I think some of these conversations, like it wanted to sort of have this real hard hitting commentary on faith and our place in the, and it just wasn't very like it was like it was very sort of on the nose and kind of
Yeah.
clunky, and it wasn't like really, I don't know, like intellectually stimulating, I guess. Like it
And it
was just sort of
kept
there.
repeating it. Yeah, and it kept repeating itself. Like they would go somewhere and hide, and then the guy would find them. They would go somewhere else and hide, the guy would find them over and over and over again. So that was a little tiresome as well.
Yeah, like
But
it kind of it reminded me almost, and I might have alluded to this in my review, but almost like a the bad version of a faith-based film, like, of just
mm,
the heavy-handedness of, like, okay, we're dealing with faith, but it's not
mhm,
like this sort of organic, we're really seeing it through the characters. It's sort of like we need to have this question, so we're gonna have characters ask these questions, and it's doesn't seem natural. I do think, like, again, my review, like, I love Spielberg. I think he's the best director of all time, and I can stand on that hill and give my reasons why. And I think John Williams is, I think, maybe less controversially is the greatest
yeah.
composer of all time. So like those guys together, because we had a comment on my review on YouTube for it, with someone saying they weren't impressed with the thematic stuff, and they had said, we need someone like, Mel Gibson, or like someone to deal with it. And the funny thing with that is, like, I think there's a lot of other directors that I think could have done more justice to like the thematic stuff. I don't know if Mel Gibson could, but I think there are people. But like, the other side of that is, like, everything I like about this movie is because of Spielberg. Like, I don't know if this movie works at all without Spielberg. Like, I think all the stuff you said, like all the interesting camera work, like just the
Mhm,
tone, the stuff that Spielberg does really well, he did,
mhm,
I think, pretty well in this movie. So I don't know if you can really separate those two. But yeah, like the thematic stuff, like that's where, I don't know. Like I think he's trying to raise some interesting questions. I just don't think he really gets there. And sort of even going in, like he sort of prepped. And I will say, I think there's been, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Um, I think there's been a bit of misinformation too. Like I know a lot of the headlines, like before this movie came out, was like, that this movie would shake Christians' faith. That this would shake, and like I couldn't actually find Spielberg saying that. Like
mm,
I think and maybe he did. If someone finds that quote, like it's all based on this like kind of this interview appearance, this 30-minute thing that he did, where he did talk a lot about. He mentioned like all the quotes about the church and the perspective of this movie and the questions, but I didn't find him actually saying, the shake the faith. And it seems to me like that was like a headline that some outlet used, and then everyone else ran with that to say Spielberg said this film will shake faith. So to be fair to him, I don't think his words were quite as provocative as a lot of the people that were mad at him. And like, but he did say, so this is in that interview, which we can maybe link in the show notes too. But sort of to sum up, sort of the question he wanted to wrestle, or at least one of the questions he wanted to wrestle with, he says, if this is true, we're known overnight. If the government announced, yes, we've been keeping this from you since 1947, that would mess up a lot of people. And the movie
yeah.
also takes the position of the church. What does this do to fundamental beliefs that we may have? And is God our God only on this planet, or is God a God for every system where there's civilization, intelligent life, and even developing life? So those are Spielberg's words, but very much, and you see that in the film too. That is sort of the question of, well, I don't know if he necessarily goes unpacks it specifically on that, but it does take the position of like, what does this do for religion? Like, what does this
Mhm,
do for our relationship to God if God has relationships with, is he like the God of these aliens too? Or
mhm,
what do we sort of do with that? So let's get into that a little bit. 'Cause I think the film seems to think, and Spielberg seems to think, that that's like that sort of the discovery of aliens are is like a very like existential, I think he says a kind of an ontological crisis or something like, it's very much like a earth-shattering, I need to go reevaluate my faith
Yeah.
and life
Yeah.
and beliefs, and I don't think it's that. Like, I don't think
I don't either.
I think he sort of overstates, and again, he's trying to make a movie and get people into the theater, so I don't necessarily I don't know if these quotes are like represents the essence of his own faith, but, maybe you can get us started a bit because I have some thoughts too, but just sort of the way that the film I don't know, there's some of the themes of that that you saw, like, specifically in the film, and then we can maybe expand that just more generally.
Specifically in, like, it shaking people's faith.
Yeah, just like the way that because like, the way the film sort of, like, unpacks the intent that he seems to have of, because it seems like in Spielberg's eyes, this is a very faith-shaking
Yeah.
development if they're aliens, and you kinda see
Well,
that
I've
with
yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you see that because there are if you haven't seen the movie, like, some of the main characters are, like, a nun or, like, a former nun, and
Mhm.
you see scenes within a church, like, which I did appreciate. Like, I did appreciate actually
Yeah.
dealing with, not hiding away from, you know,
Mhm.
it's sort of like I feel like Christians a lot of times complain that like Hollywood never this acts like religion doesn't exist unless
Mhm.
religion's the the bad guy.
Yeah.
I did appreciate kind of like the Wake Up Dead Man, like seeing a kind of authentic people that aren't the villain of the story asking
Yeah.
questions of faith, even if agree with, I don't really necessarily think they did great developing it.
Yeah.
I do like that Spielberg actually went there.
I know, I loved the nun. The nun was my favorite character. I was like, "Period queen," when they had that conversation on the phone and she was just like, talking about we're God's supreme beings on earth, which okay, like, the emphasis of on earth first of all, it's really interesting, I had never thought about that in that way before, and it just, like, brings up thoughts of like, "Oh, like, we don't know everything." My dad would always say when I was younger that, like, there could be another planet, like, across the galaxy with, aliens who live there, and there could be a Bible for that planet. Jesus could have died for them as well. Like, we don't know. God doesn't have to tell us everything. But it's also I don't know, the theological implications of that, I think, are too smart for me to to work
Yeah,
through.
because
Um
there are oh yeah.
I have a lot to say, so jump in whenever.
I was gonna say, yeah, 2 things. One, I think there is because there is a lot of theological implications, even if I don't think there necessarily is like, um, knocked down as people think. But it is interesting,
Mhm.
like, in some ways, because guys like C.S. Lewis, like, even all the way back, like, I know he had a famous essay, "Religion and Rocketry." Obviously, it sounds dated now, but it's the idea of, like, going to space and sort of what basically addressing this question. So it's not like this is a new issue. But even as, like, his Narnia books, like, the way you sort of frame, like, they have their own Bible, like, these other worlds,
Mhm.
essentially, that's what Narnia is. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
if you hear Lewis talk about it, it's sort of like, what would happen if there's sort of this other world, and like how would God relate to them? And like he came to us as a human, he goes to them as an animal because they're a world of talking
Mhm.
animals. And like in some ways, like I know he wrote like space books and stuff that maybe more directly deal with it, but in some ways, Narnia is like his answer to that of like what
Yeah.
well, then God would just relate to them and they would have their own kind of, need
Mhm.
for salvation and some of that, and God might appear and have, like, a different,
Mhm.
relationship, to it. But you were, you had more to say on that because
Yeah. Yeah, I'm no well, I yeah, that was the closing of that point for me, but that's really cool too. I had never thought of Narnia in that way, but, I mean, we don't know. We don't know most things that there is to know. Um, but kind of pivoting just slightly, I think this film, it was very interesting. It was a very political film, which I think I don't know if that's really clear, but especially because it just ends with the word listen, which you talked about a little in the review. Which, I mean, yeah, like, we should truly listen to what people we disagree with, are saying and figure out what they're actually trying to say and what the root of their belief is. Because I think a lot of the times people have the same goal and are saying the same things, but we don't take the time to listen, and that moves into what, Hugo who is awesome. I love Hugo, my guy. He's great. But what he was saying about the aliens is what humans are missing is that the aliens like core is their empathy. Which there's been a lot of talk, like, that's the biggest thing now. There's this been this a lot of talk about how we need to be empathetic with people, and Hugo implied, like, that this is the solution to everything in the world right now. It'll solve World War III and all of this stuff, and empathy is important, but it's like it's dangerous if that's the only thing that you're holding on to. It's really dangerous without reason, without godly love. In film, this is something I thought was really interesting, but in film, like villains, well-written villains, their ideology is normally based on one trait, and they go all the way with that trait. It could even be love, but love without, well, I'm not talking about godly love here, but love like without reason. You like the new movie Obsession, if you are completely obsessed with this one person and you love them so completely and totally, that could lead you to killing a bunch of people to keep them away from the person that you love to make sure that they're safe. And so empathy empathy without truth and without reason and without love is not a good thing. Is not a
Yeah,
good
well,
thing at all.
and it's interesting too, because the way they talk about empathy in the movie too, like, they refer to it as, like, an evolutionary trait, like, that this is sort of our
Mhm.
the peak of our evolution is that we evolved to have empathy, which is, I mean, interesting if you just look at, obviously, as a Christian, like, I don't believe that we are just evolved creatures, but, like, no one like, none of the animals in the empathy does not exist outside of humanity, like, you don't have, like, lions and stuff, like, you don't see other animals and stuff out there showing empathy in the way that we think of it. And it's just sort of interesting, like the way the movie very much support, empathy is sort of the answer, just listen to each other and but just sort of the emptiness of some of that if you sort of take out the higher like standard and like the reason like if you take out sort of God and all you have is sort of this evolved trait of empathy, um
Mhm.
I feel like the movie almost showcases some of this, like the shallowness of that as sort of the be all end all. But there are some theological stuff because I think one of the things too that I think is important is that, like there is some of the question of like alien, does this shake our faith or whatever? Um, Part of it is also I think sort of untangling like the depiction of aliens in movies because
Mhm.
sort of the question of alien life and the question of aliens as they are depicted in movies aren't usually the same thing. Like most times, unless they're just like a mindless killing force,
Yeah.
if it's like a more like intelligent alien life, like they're often shown almost as these like divine beings. Like, I think of, like, even, like,
Yeah.
Arrival, the Villeneuve movie, like,
Mhm.
um, or this movie, like, a lot of the times, like, like, they have, like their minds are so far advanced, and they can essentially be gods. Like,
Mhm.
they can communicate, they can, like, give us these powers, and, like, um, and there is I don't know, there is sort of a sense that, like, okay, well, if we discovered aliens like that, then that would raise more difficult questions for Christians, I think. If we just discovered hey, there's other creatures that are sort of like us and mortal, like they're just sort of on these planets, then that's not necessarily as big of an issue. And like I don't think there is any reason to think that like to assume that alien life would be just so far advanced. Like I think that just
Yeah.
makes for good that makes for good movies. But so I do think like
It
the
could
way
be
that
bacteria too, like, w aliens
yeah, I
may
mean,
not even be
like
human,
yeah,
like.
like, I mean, like, Project Hail Mary is sort of an example
Mhm.
of that, like, that's not like I mean, Rocky in it is but even
A
that one
god.
is interesting because it sort of show and maybe the book does it a bit more, but, like, that they are advanced in some things, but not in other things. Like, they're more
Mhm.
equals than they are, like, this
Yeah.
divine, type, creature. I do think one of the things that people will say not makes it difficult, but it is relevant for Christians. It's just that like the Bible doesn't seem to imply that there are aliens. Like I think, and again, the Bible doesn't imply a lot of things because it wasn't
Yeah.
written. It wasn't written for people asking those types of questions. But I do think like like going by like Revelation or something, like sort of the throne of heaven,
Mhm.
like it, it says people of all tribes and nations. I don't think it's that, and there were some green guys with big heads and they were, like big eyes, full armor, like I don't know what they were, but I saw people from, all the,
Well,
Persia and all these, s-
Scientology, that's what
yeah,
they
yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like it, like the moments where you would think they would exist or something like, you know, the Bible doesn't necessarily speak. I mean, it doesn't at all speak to that. I do think like if there are like Colossians 1:16, for in him, and kind of meaning Jesus, all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. Um, which does make clear like if there are aliens, then like they're under sort of the lordship of Christ too. Like they're not sort of these equal divine powers.
Mhm,
They would
mhm.
be, if we did discover them, I think kind of like the nun character in the movie, who's when she's sort of asked about that, and she's like,
She's the best.
who it's like who would like I forget how she words it, but essentially like how could the infinite creativity and power of God be contained to just our planet? Like for her,
Mhm.
it's like, well, if there are some, that just shows that God is awesome and he
It
created a
just
lot of things and
increases Yeah, it just increases, like, my awe in God's creative power and his creative mind. It's like, it would be so cool to be like, "Oh, like God made these creatures who live in space. That's insane." And it's like, even if they do exist and if they are intelligent beings, that does not negate the fact, like, that we were chosen by God and created special in his eyes. It doesn't change the fact that Jesus still died for us. Like, these are the core tenets of the faith that are not in any way affected by the existence of aliens. I guess it would maybe affect your belief in if God exists, maybe, but I don't know, I just think it would be so cool to see, uh, for God to if God allowed us to see these other creatures that he made in, uh, a universe, like or a galaxy across the universe from us.
yeah, and yeah, because I think, like you said, like like our favorite nun in the movie sort of says too, like it just seems like
Queen, what a
uh,
queen.
that it almost like adds to the wonder. I feel like to
Mhm,
discover other alien or people intelligent like out in the cosmos, like to me that that's not like okay, well if they're out there, there must not be a god because like I don't see the logical step from that of like, well, he created us, so there has to be a God. But if there's us somewhere else and there can't be a God, it's like no. I think if anything, it's like there must be a God because the more random and like the less it seems likely that this has sort of happened by accident. So I think that's a big part of it. I think also too like the question of whether because that's sort of the other one. One is like the reasons why it might be challenging. One is just the Bible doesn't mention it, so there's that aspect of it.
mhm,
But the other part, and I think it's the part the movie tries to hammer home, is just sort of like that we may not be as special then. Like, the
mhm,
Bible implies that we have this very special relationship with God. And if God's like, oh, we're just one of dozens of, these planets and they all have their own Bibles and relationships and Adam and Eve stories and stuff, like, does that imply that we're not? Because that sort of is, I did like, I think it was forced, but I did like the implication in the movie the one character, when she discovers that there are aliens, she calls the nun, and, like, her question is, like, "Do
yeah,
you think God loves us?" Like, that's where she goes of, like, "Okay, I've does God actually love us, or are we just sort of lost among,
mhm,
the sea of other creatures?" But even that, like, I feel like either, like because the Bible is clear, like we're made in God's image, you know, and I don't know, like, and obviously that doesn't necessarily just mean like physical. I think it means that's a complicated kind of theological thing, the image of God. But like, I mean, either the aliens are not made in God's image and they're very different, and in which case we
mhm,
still are sort of the very special chosen. Or else I think
mhm,
aliens are would be a lot more similar to us. Like if we did discover
mhm,
aliens, I don't think they would be radically different. Maybe physically they would have had some differences, but either they're also sort of made in the image of God and we're like more equals, or else like we are. still sort of special. So I don't know, like this isn't for me. It's just one of those. Like I remember watching the movie, just being like, I don't see where the challenge is. Like I don't see where
Yeah.
the like I can't kind of like I sort of wanted it because I wanted to wrestle with it in my review, and I thought it'd be interesting to have those. And it's like none of these questions seem to be raising uh, hard,
Yeah,
kind
because
of
the
thorny
nun
issues.
answered them for us, you know?
Yeah,
If we
and
didn't have that conversation with the nun, I think it would have been more challenging.
yeah, and I'd be curious too, like someone who's not like maybe the nun, like maybe her answers are more convincing to like me and you because we share her faith. Like I wonder if
Mhm.
someone that's not, that isn't
That's a
that
good
doesn't
question.
believe would be like, oh, like that seems flimsy. That seems like just sort of desperate.
Yeah.
Like because to me it's like, oh yeah, the nun, like preach it, sister. Like you got this. You
Yeah.
you, you sort of you untangled the question. Um, but yeah, so I would be curious sort of how it did in my review. I sort of said like I felt like Wake Up Dead Man was sort of a more person, like you could tell like Ryan Johnson making that movie was wrestling with the questions of like someone like within that has gone through those, like wrestled with those questions himself. Not that Spielberg is like wasn't being authentic or that he's not a man of faith himself or any of that. It just felt more like someone on the outside being like, these are the questions that people over there would have,
Yeah.
as opposed to like,
It felt more connected to the story,
yeah,
I think.
like it just didn't seem like there was a grasp of like these are the sort of questions that religious people would actually have. It's more like these are the questions I think they would have.
Mhm.
Anything.
Yeah.
One other thing to note too is I know people have wondered too, and it's the timing was interesting. Like about even like a lot of these UFO stories, like abduction stories or like encounters with aliens. Like there has been throughout the years, like people making the case that like these are actually us encountering like spiritual beings, like this is angels and
Yeah.
demons, and like we don't have a, and it was funny. I was writing that in my show notes like about that, and as I was doing that, I got an email from a PR person about a new documentary, UFOs and
Oh,
God, which comes out
cool.
on September 10th, apparently,
Wanna see
2026,
that.
which is essentially making that case. So it's like, oh, I guess that really is it really is a thought. As I was thinking about that, I got that email. But and I will admit, I do find some of that stuff kind of can be kind of hokey, um, if you take that too far. But I think there is an interesting thought experiment of just like maybe throughout the years, like we were visited by an angel and
Mhm.
various we didn't have the framework to understand that, and we took it as sort of
Mhm.
this celestial, and that became, the mythology kind of grew out of that, which would make sense, I guess, to
Yeah.
so I don't know. I think that is interesting. The only other kind of thing, and then we can end, is I do think maybe the last area that this can maybe be uh, thorny is just sort of the idea of like sinful nature, like because I think that sort of becomes one of the
Yeah.
hypotheticals of like, okay, like are aliens under the curse? Like, like the Adam, or
Yeah, that's the
they,
interesting
could
thing.
you have like sinless, and they are sinless and they haven't fallen, but we've fallen, and I don't know. Like I don't know if you have any deep thoughts on that, but for
Yeah.
me, I think
Yeah, that's interesting. 'Cause when Adam and Eve fell, isn't because before weren't, like, the lions and the lambs living together in harmony, but as soon as they ate of the fruit, they became enemies? Is that or am I making that up?
yeah, no, like that's well, I think I know in Revelation, like they will be together.
Yeah.
I don't I've always been of the opinion that I think there was death in Eden. I think animals still ate each other. We still stepped on ants and and bugs. I don't that's debated. Like a lot of theologians would say like no, like death. I think it's the Bible's talking more about spiritual death. But yeah, I think you're right though for the like for me, I don't know, I think maybe, and I know it's a thorny, like we could, a lot of theology written on it, but like just the idea of like what sort of sinful nature means. Like I don't know if it's like some sort of like, now we got that DNA and that passes down to only like
Yeah.
I think like for me, I just think like once they sin, like creation's under the curse, like all of
Mhm.
creation, not just
Yeah.
humans, like animals,
That was
the
the
actual like
point I was
physical,
trying to
yeah,
make,
like
but wasn't
it's like
sure about.
it's like the physical planet is under the curse.
Yeah.
Like, it says like the earth is groaning for, like whatever pangs. Like so for me, like, I think even like I think that just marked and sort of encapsulates like our brokenness with creation and God. So like I would think that aliens are still under the curse. Like I don't think if there's sin, if we have sort of been broken away, then I think all of creation is separate and would need to. But obviously, I could see that you could have a field day going down those rabbit trails. But overall, I think the final thought would just be, I think it's an interesting movie. I wish it was more had more to say because I think there are some interesting questions about some of that, and I think it is. I don't know. I think it's fun for Christians to think through anything that would, if for no other reason than just to sort of get a better grasp. Like, what is my faith built on? And I think part of the ways you can understand that is to think of like what could happen that would, what's the evidence they could find or discover that would shake my faith. Like, I think if you sort of go at it that way, like I know when I did like apologetic studies and for school and stuff, like you come across a lot of that. Like, this is the evidence I would need to believe in God, or this is the evidence. If they found this, like Jesus's body somehow, like if they found this hypothetically, then I would lose my faith. And I think, I don't know, for me, if the existence of aliens makes you lose your faith, then I think that says more about your faith than
Well,
it does about.
and if you have an ultimatum for what, like at all, if like what you're saying, if they found this, like, then my faith, then I would lose my faith. Why do you have an ultimatum on that? Like, it doesn't seem like sounds very judgmental. Maybe I should stop talking.
Maybe you need more alien empathy.
Maybe. Well, yeah, I'm just like it's a relationship with Jesus. And even if I mean, if they found Jesus's body, that well, they're not going to because he rose, but that's very interesting because that is a core tenet of Christianity. But yeah, it's a relationship with Jesus that I feel like you can get through any doubt with him if you have that relationship. And I just think that is so powerful and something that we shouldn't forget about.
Yeah, so I think this is not, aliens are not some knockdown thing. I think it's interesting. I tend to believe that there aren't aliens, or at least that aliens won't visit us, just because of the way the Bible talks about like the end times, and I think of like a mothership approach over the sky, that might factor into the end of days and Jesus coming. So if there are aliens, I don't know if they will ever pay us a visit, but if they did, hopefully they're nice and don't want to conquer our planet. But
I
hey, let
think
us know
I'd
if
get
you.
along. Yeah, I think I'd
Yeah,
get along with aliens.
I find my people among the stars. But let us know if you're listening to this. If you are a believer, if you hashtag I want to believe, like Fox Mulder, what you think of aliens. If you saw the movie, let us know what you thought of the way it handled themes of faith. But speaking of opinions that may be so profound that we would assume they come from some higher intelligent being up in the stars, the final segment of this podcast, we have things we like that you should like too. So this is my week to share something that I like an alien descending from the stars to pass on wisdom to humanity. I will come and share, and this may not be like a hot take because I'm sharing something that I think a lot of people, at least of a certain age, should like or already like, and that is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I don't know if you might be too young, Naya, to have experienced this in like for the first time, first edition of this game. But
Yeah.
this is my favorite video game of all time. Like this game like changed me. Like this is mind blowing at the time, and it's interesting because they just announced. This is the reason I thought of it. They like remade it. It's coming out later this year, and like they overhauled the graphics and hopefully some of the like controls and stuff because it was dated back
Cool.
on the N64. But it got me so nostalgic seeing that it was coming back that I actually have had one of my sons start playing like the N64 version because he'd never played it.
Fun.
He saw me play it at some point, but so he's been playing it and like discovering it for the first time, like decades after the game came out. And I mean, like as we speak right now, he's in the other room playing Ocarina of Time, and I mean the game holds up. Like the graphics don't hold up; it doesn't look great. But like so much about that game, I don't know. To me, seeing like one of my kids like around the same age I would have been, I guess, when maybe I was a bit older when that game came out and he was playing with it. Did you ever play, like, you were probably not even born when the N64 came out, but have you ever played, dabbled in some, Legend of Zelda or Ocarina of Time?
I used to play Legends of Zelda. I don't remember. I don't think it was the Ocarina of Time version, but yeah, I was never a huge video game person. I was a Wii person, and like the video games that I played were like Wii games, Mario Kart, the GameCube version, might I say, Super Smash, the GameCube version, and then Club Penguin and Minecraft. So I don't know if you count those, but
Because
I did play Legends of Zelda briefly.
because was the Wii, like, your entry point to, like, I'm trying to think of to place you on the timeline of video games, like, the
Wii was very popular. That's like my generation's big thing. The Wii, the Xbox, like all of those, but the Wii was my family's thing, I would say. We did have my dad's old GameCube. That was super cool and super fun. But it's not working anymore,
'cause,
unfortunately.
um, not to make this all about video games, the GameCube is the only Nintendo system that I never owned. Like, I had
Really?
the original Nintendo. I was, pretty young for that. Like, the Super Nintendo was, when I really got into, like, I was a kid and playing it, and I remember getting the N64 for Christmas and, like, blowing my
Yeah.
mind that this is, it's like 3D, the graphics are mind-blowing, and, and then I've had every system since then. The Wii came out
Hmm.
right when I got married, so, like, me and my wife, we spent some of our early first years of marriage, playing some, like, Wii bowling and stuff in our tiny little apartment, and so
Amazing.
so I don't know, people that I'm not necessarily like a huge gamer. Like, I don't play online or I don't play hours and hours and hours, but and all the games I play came out like 3 decades. I just play the nostalgic ones, but I do think people that sort of, especially Christians, that just feel like video games are a big waste of time. I think there is some sense of, like, I don't know, just seeing my kid play the game and, like, talking through, and, like, I still remember all the secrets, and we're kind of talking through where he is in the game. Like, there is sort of that, like, generational, connection and stuff to just great stories told through video games. So if you've never played it, either go play the N64 one and just kind of deal with the dated graphics, or wait, I don't know what time later this year when the remake comes out. So maybe you can do a Ocarina of Time Nintendo Collision review, because you should play it at least
Okay.
once.
That sounds
Um,
good.
but until then, we'll be waiting for that game. We'll be waiting for aliens to come visit us as we go about our lives watching World Cup games on this planet called Earth. But we hope you will join us. If aliens haven't come between now and next Thursday, we hope you will join us again for another episode, just diving into everything going on in the world of pop culture. So we will see you again next week for more conversations on faith and pop culture.